Hello, comic book fans. Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where me and my very good friend Brian talk about the adaptations of comic books into your favorite streaming shows and movies. So, Brian, we are up to episode 4 of The Last of Us. Are you still on board The Last of Us train?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
Again, like I always say, I do think that the game and the show are great. I do think they're still a little bit overhyped, a little bit, but I think they are both great. I mean, I have no notes on the last episode, obviously. Still like that was just absolutely fantastic. That deserves the all the accolades it's getting. It absolutely deserves it. But I still think that the show is not. It's a very good, refined version of a kind of an existing ideas.
Mhm. Yeah, it could win Emmys and Golden Globes based on that last episode. The show just seemed to get like a big positive reception. Everyone that I know personally that watches this show really dug that episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it shifts gear. We go from this, just this love story that covers decades to all of a sudden we're back in this post-apocalyptic present of 2023, and now we're up to episode 4. Please hold my hand. So, Brian, have you seen Melanie Linsky in anything else?
The whole time watching this episode, I'm like, she looks really familiar, and I just couldn't place it. So I don't think I know.
Yeah. Me and Sherry are big fans of her because she's from Yellow Jackets. Wait, there's some kind of weird sound. I'm sorry. That's my
If it's
headphones.
the buzzing, that's my dryer.
Oh, okay. All right. That's cool. Yeah, it's funny. Like when you go to record a show and you don't have a studio, you're just like in your house. I'm in my daughter's bedroom. Um, in Texas, we had like all of the trees like dropped branches, pieces of trees fell down because of the freeze we had last week.
Yeah.
And like there's just a truck going down my block right now, just chopping up trees into like little bits. I was like, that's gonna be good for our recording today, right? Yeah, but anyway, luckily that noise left, and I can go back to my rambling here. Melanie Linsky, she is from the show Yellow Jackets, which me and Sherry are big fans of. She was in a movie called Heavenly Creatures. It was her first movie, and she was like a teenager. She was with Kate Winslet, and it's based on a true story where this woman, um, these two girls killed the one girl's mother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's based on a true crime that happened in New Zealand. And here's a little fun fact: has nothing to do with fucking Last of Us at all. But one of the women, the one that Kate Winslet plays, she grew up to be like this successful author. So even though she was a murderer when she was a child, they just, I guess, let her get away with it, and she's like a successful author.
Wow.
Yeah,
But she was known like.
yes, known for this crime.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, the movie's really good. It's Peter Jackson. It's like one of his first movies, I think, like after he did some horror movies. Um, but anyway, Melanie Linsky. She's also in the show called Candy, which was like a little true crime miniseries on Hulu, and she was really great in that. And then now this. So did you like her in this?
Yeah, no, I like when you see, um, atypical leader people, in the kind of shows for like more villainous or not villainous antagonists. I think it's a breath of fresh air, honestly. And these characters that were in this that are part of this group here, they're not in the game. So the game, the game they go to Pittsburgh. This is Kansas City, and you are fighting a bunch of people in the city. How they get stopped is pretty much exactly how it happens in the game. But there's not really any kind of personification of these guys other than they're just kind of scavengers that trap travelers and rob them.
So in all the stuff that leads up to them getting ambushed in Kansas City, is that in the game? Like, do they have those little interactions where they're sleeping in the woods? And then, like, did she take that gun and hide it too in the game?
That if that happens, it happens. No, it's not as laid out as that.
Okay.
That kind of happens just randomly over time. She does take a gun at some point. She does shoot someone while that is attacking Joel, and that is the first time she shoots someone. I don't remember if she is if Ellie takes a gun from somewhere and is hiding it, or it's already given to her at that point. Joel does kind of scold her about it in a way, but he eventually does sort of thank her in his own kind of way later on in the game as well as the show here. But essentially, the way the game goes is that they get the truck from Bill. They're on the road. That scene in the beginning where she finds the magazine, that is in the actual game. And then you're pretty much at Pittsburgh. Okay. And then that whole sequence happens. So them sleeping in the woods, them going to that gas station is not specifically at that point, but I'm sure that's covered somewhere during the actual gameplay somewhere.
Okay. And then, like you said, the joke book is in the game too?
The jokes are in the game. I believe they just get told while you're just kind of walking around and exploring. So I'm not replaying the game along this. I'm kind of just watching the cutscenes.
Yeah.
So they weren't in the cutscenes that I was watching, but I do remember there being jokes like that. I don't know if they're the exact ones. I kind of hope they are, and I kind of think they are.
Yeah.
But and that's kind of cool if it is. But if not, still, I always appreciate a good dad joke.
Yeah. So is the relationship between Ellie and Joel very similar to the relationship in the game, or is it like Ellie's maybe sort of more outgoing or like in your face in the show, or are they pretty similar?
No, it's pretty much on the nose. They're treated like exactly like the game.
Okay, cool. Yeah. One thing I was worried about, because I watched this show with my wife, and I know that she really isn't a fan of like the sort of post-apocalyptic genre. She's compared it to Walking Dead a couple of times already. I know that like when it gets all grim and dire, I think that she starts to probably like her eyes glaze over, you know? And I was actually surprised at how like upbeat and positive it was before they got to the city. Like them just kind of camping together and making jokes together. Like I really felt like their relationship, you know, that they have chemistry together. Those two
I mean that's a key component of why the game is great. Is this the dialogue and the chemistry between the characters. The combat and the stealth of it is really interesting too. But again, it's a refined kind of thing of something we've seen before in both regards. It's just better than is this, but it's nothing really truly original to me.
Yeah. I mean, everything I see, you know, you kind of like, all right, I know this is going to happen and this is going to happen next. Like even when they're just driving into the city, I'm like, okay, if they're not going to encounter the, clickers, and they're going to encounter some kind of bad humans. And then what I thought was interesting, and so Neil Druckmann, the guy who is the game creator and one of the showrunners, he was saying that like what you said before, where they essentially just like elaborated so much on these scavenger characters from the game. And there's this real dynamic to it. Like when you meet Melanie Lynskey, she's interrogating this man in a cell, and there's like this whole backstory that she's referring to. And you kind of have to piece it all together. She keeps talking about a man named Henry, and she's basically alluding that like Fedra was in charge of this area, this city, and I guess they were just so brutal that the people rose up against them. And when Fedra was in charge and was brutal, apparently this guy Henry like ratted some of them out, and they got in trouble. Was that your take too on what you were saying?
They definitely overthrew Fedra because they were fed up. I wasn't exactly clear on why they were looking for Henry. Over the course of the episode, you see as Joel and Ellie are hiding, you see that they're up in an attic somewhere. You see some child's artwork, so obviously there's another character. And in the very end of the episode, you do see two characters kind of holding up Joel and Ellie at gunpoint. That's Henry and Sam.
Okay.
We obviously will see more about them in the next episode. I won't spoil anything, but it seems like it might be a little different than the game. So in the game, they were just kind of passing through. They were part of a group. They were passing through, and the antagonists are literally just enemies and they just will kill anybody and survival of the fittest kind of thing. I'm curious to see how they're going to change that based on this kind of the setup they have with what is Kathleen? Kathleen. Based on that interrogation and her as the leader and that group in general. So I think they're going to again expand, like they said, where it makes sense and where it works, and keep it where it doesn't need to be changed. So I think here is a good point because this was really just a level where you're kind of going through enemies and then you do meet these other characters. And I was expecting an episode with them and not necessarily seeing the other side of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like the way that it's structured, they're like, okay, we're going to add more depth. We're going to give these villains who are just basically people to shoot in the game, we're going to give them a backstory now. But even in the dialogue itself, it's like layered because you add little details where Kathleen's interrogating this older man, and the older man you find out is a doctor. And then you find out that he's the doctor that delivered her when she was a baby. And it's like, they don't need to have that in the show at all, but that is so much more of an effective line. Him just saying that like calmly to her versus like, please don't kill me, like some kind of like over the top groveling. It's so much more effective of like, what are you doing? I delivered you when you were a baby.
Yeah, no, it's a great. Oh, I'm sorry for cutting you off. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's what I think kind of elevates this show and makes it better than what we were saying. How it's like it's kind of like a generic story that we've all seen done multiple times now. I think there's just these little small touches that elevate it. Maybe not dramatically like everyone is saying, but it elevates it above what we're used to.
Yeah, no, that's what I keep saying is it's a very refined show.
Yeah.
It's a refined formula, and I don't want to say a formula because it doesn't feel like exactly a formula, but like it is not a wildly original thing there. But details like that are great, and how that particular detail of like, I was the doctor that delivered you, how that kind of heightens the fact when she just walks back in later and shoots that guy.
Yeah.
Like that is so much more effective at showing what Kathleen is about than just a random person just pleading for their lives.
Yes, and like just to kind of keep going with that sequence. At one point, she's talking to the doctor, and she takes out her gun and she puts it right to the temple of his head, right? And the way that it's framed, there's enough space on the wall behind him that since I've seen so many movies and stuff, just like you, I'm thinking, okay, she's going to shoot him and like his brains and stuff are going to go on the wall behind him. But then that doesn't happen. And it's not like this sort of Rian Johnson, like, oh, we're going to subvert your expectations. It's just like a subtle thing, like where she goes out and just like you said, she goes out and they discover the people that Joel and Ellie killed. And then she's like, can we get a doctor to help them? And they're like, the doctor can't help. And then she goes and kills the guy. And you don't even see her shoot the guy. You just see her shoot the gun into the room. It's the opposite of The Walking Dead or like Game of Thrones, because those shows are always so gratuitous. It's like, let's show the most graphic thing we can. In this, you don't see that man get shot. You just see her shooting into the doorway.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So did you take it that the guy that Joel killed, that was like, I stop, I surrender. Like, do you think that was her son? That's
what I thought was implied. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't biological, it was adoptive in some way.
Yeah. So the title of the episode is called "Please Hold My Hand." Does that guy, when he's like pleading, does he say "Please hold my hand"?
I don't remember hearing that in the episode.
Right. Oh, wait a minute. Do you think that maybe it was the song that they played when they put the cassette in?
Cassette was. What was the cassette?
It was fucking country.
Hank Williams.
I think it was Hank Williams. Yeah.
It could be. It's possible. Yes.
Yeah, because the last episode was the title was the title of the song too.
Yeah.
So
they're not all song titles, are they?
Well, there's one called "Be Quiet and Drive." Then there's one called "Head Up."
You had me for a second. You really did.
There's a weird one called "Stabbing the Drama." I'm just trying to think of all these. The last one's called "Dare to Be Stupid," which is weird. I don't know.
That doesn't sound like it fits in the show.
No, definitely not. But you know what? I'm glad that I kind of remembered that because I actually really liked that montage when they were driving and listening to that Hank Williams song too.
Which montage was that, Hank Williams song?
So she finds a cassette. You know, she also finds that porno magazine, which you mentioned last time.
Yes.
So she finds that magazine, and then she finds a cassette like in the back of the seat, and it's I think it's Hank Williams, and they play it, and they're just kind of driving, and you just sort of see these big, open, desolate roads, you know, and like just the ruins of things.
No, so the song they played was "Alone and Forsaken" by Hank Williams. So it's not the name of the song is not the name of the episode.
Okay.
So I don't know what the whole end part is then.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So while they're driving in this sequence, it looks like for a second that there's buffalo. And I was like, is that true? And like, so do animals get affected by the spore or no?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't remember if there are animal enemies in the game or not. I know there is a sequence that I don't remember what part it was in the game it is where they do see some animals that are uninfected. And I'm curious if we must not have passed that yet. It must be later on. So yeah, it's possible that they can. I imagine that the barrier for these things to be in humans was temperature. So I would imagine that temperature kind of eliminates that same barrier for animals as well. But I really don't remember if there are any kind of like clicker dogs in the game or not.
Yeah. I should have went back and saw because I was like, are those fucking buffalo? But we just kept watching. But anyway, we get to the city and they get ambushed. Then you have this whole little section where, Melanie Lynskey is talking to all these people that live there. And I wrote this in the notes that she is really good at switching back and forth between sort of seeming like kind of fragile or frail and that like she's kind of unsteady. And she especially shows it in her eyes. And she could be like kind of almost weak seeming, but then in the next moment be very serious and like, deadly. And she's like that in Yellow Jackets. She's like that in Heavenly Creatures. She's even like that in Candy, but it's not the same kind of character as this. So I think that like when she's talking to the people, she seems a little weak, but yet she commands all of their respect. And I thought that was really interesting. Like what you were saying before of how you kind of expect the leader to be a certain person. Like I think you kind of expect it to be this sort of alpha male person. And for her to be this atypical leader, I just think that's a really interesting choice.
Yeah, I like that kind of timid. I don't want to say timid, but yes, she does have some atypical qualities. When she's speaking to the people, like it's like she's speaking to her family in a sense, but she really knows that these are like her soldiers essentially.
Yes,
I really like that contrast there.
Yeah, and her second in command is this guy Perry, and we learned of his backstory that he was in the military. Because did you watch the behind the scenes for the episode?
I did not get to watch it for this episode.
Okay, well, in the behind the scenes, the actor that plays Perry, his name's Jeffrey Pierce, and he kind of alludes to Perry's backstory. He says that he was in the military, and then he says that he played Tommy in the game. So you recognized him. Yeah. That is such a cool touch. I love how you had that one woman that was gonna be in the game and then she wasn't, and she's in the show. And they have this guy who's playing Joel's brother, and he's in the show now too.
Yeah, I hope we get some other cameos from other actors as we go along too. Particularly maybe like Troy Baker or something like that. If we haven't seen him already in the background, I don't even remember.
Yeah, is Troy Baker's the guy that played Joel?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So then, let me see. Okay, so here's another thing I had a question about. At one point, Perry and Kathleen are like searching for Henry, and they go into this one building, and in the ground, it looks almost like there was like a crater, and the crater's kind of vibrating. So, what is that?
I don't know actually. I'm assuming that I felt they were implying that was the presence of those kind of like vine things that the clickers, and it was going to come out of the ground soon or something like that. I did see a preview that we're going to see a different kind of enemy coming up. I wonder if it could be related to that. Which this kind of enemy again, it's like a very typical zombie game kind of enemy, that you see in many other games, but it's just with fungus instead of rotting flesh.
Well, you know what, Brian? Just to make things a little spicy and like make our video go a little longer, because when we talk about one episode, it's just like we're pretty like close to done right now.
Yeah.
So when you talk about typical zombie enemies, right? What's a
Yeah.
game for you that like has the best kind of zombie enemy? And I bet I'm gonna guess what you're gonna say, but
there's a lot of games with zombies there, especially since the invention of fast zombies and all that.
Yeah.
I want to say Left 4 Dead was kind of revolutionary in a way because it had the fast zombies, it had that kind of frantic pace there, and then it had those unique zombies. So there was ones that could like jump really far, and then ones that could like tie you up with this weird like tongue thing and they poison you, and then there was the big huge ones that explode, and then there's the huge like unstoppable juggernaut-y kind of ones.
Yeah.
I would say that was like the template for most zombie type enemies that appear in most games these days. On the other flip side, I always want to give credit to Dead Space.
That's the one I thought you were going to say.
It's the game I'm playing again right now because they just had a remake of the first game. They just released it a week or two ago, and that's a little less zombie, a little more like cosmic horror-y. It's like Event Horizon, more like with the Thing kind of enemies. But what I really love about that is that it's not the typical shoot the zombie in the head thing as the weak point. You actually have weapons that are designed to cut the limbs off of the enemies, and that's their weak point. You shoot their leg off, and they stop crawling at you faster. You cut their arms off, they can't attack you as hard. So that's that's always a standout for me as well. But again, like Left 4 Dead to me set a bar that I think most games copy and emulate to a point, and even non-zombie games. There's other games like they just have those archetypes.
Yeah.
Like there's like a hunter-y type, and there's like a poison-y type, and one that explodes and things like that. So those two things stand out to me.
Yeah. And I mean, there's like zombie type villains in so many things, right? Like in Halo, there's like the Flood, right?
Flood, yeah, of course.
And then like Mass Effect, there's like the
gas. Yeah, kind of like techno-organic zombies, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just interesting, like it's that kind of that, how do you have this like mindless killing machine, but how do you like kind of tweak it to make it more interesting? And so like the thing that they show on the previews for next week's episode, it looks like a clicker, but it looks like the majority of its body is like the fungus versus like a human host, and it looks like it's like bigger, like a tank.
Yes, that's what I'm assuming we're going to get in the next episode.
Cool, yeah.
But the thing is, I think the first time you run into that is actually in the school area where you're when you're with Bill and trying to get the battery for the car. So that would have came up earlier.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah, so I mean, they really haven't shown you very many zombies in this, which I'm totally fine with because that's not the draw here,
Right.
They're just a plot device, really, to kind of paint a picture with this post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah. And so, how many episodes are there total
in the show?
Yeah, coming up.
There's 9 total. So.
9. Okay, so we're almost at the halfway point.
And we actually, tomorrow we get the next episode.
Oh yeah, because the Super Bowl. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I could probably watch it before Sunday this week. Was there anything else you wanted to say about this episode of?
Yeah, I mean, just to continue on the that larger zombie, like I find that interesting because that's something you see in zombie films. I don't think as much. You just everyone's kind of the same. I mean, if there's a bigger zombie, it's because they were a bigger person. But this is like something different, like it mutated in a different way. It's a little more of like the Resident Evil alley than Dawn of the Dead or Night of the Living Dead or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And it makes sense in a video game because you're just dealing with so many enemies. You need variation, right? You need something scarier, you need something bigger, right? Whereas in a movie, it's like the one threat is scary. Also, like in a video game, you're actively taking on the zombies, and so they have to become more challenging. Whereas in a movie, it's usually like you're just trying to get the fuck away from them, right?
Yeah, although there are games that prioritize kind of avoidance over combat. Like, I would say Silent Hill does that really well. Like I always appreciated that game too. Although the enemies, there's usually not many enemy types in those games, but like you're not really good at shooting or in combat in those games. You're much better off avoiding if you can. And then that's always been the challenge, and the fun part of those games is just trying to figure out how to get out of whatever situation you're in with whatever resource you have.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, just a variation on that, right? Like, if you go to the arcade, there's like an Alien game based on the Alien franchise, and there's just all different aliens. There's aliens that fly, there's, different colors and stuff like that. But then you have another game like Alien Isolation, right? And that's the one where you're essentially trying to just escape the creature the whole time.
That's great. Yeah, there's one alien the entire game. It's invincible for the most part. You can kind of scare it off, but you can't kill it.
Yeah.
And you're essentially just hiding from it most of the game.
Yeah. And like with zombie movies, it is just mainly for the most part just trying to escape them. Like you don't really see things where they like people go after them actively, like kind of maybe in The Walking Dead and maybe like further into the George Romero movies when the zombies have been around longer. But for the most part, it's always escape the zombies, try to avoid them. And they do have variations of zombies, but it's like usually it's just like there's one version per movie. So you have like the running zombies from like the Walking, not the Walking Dead, Dawn of the Dead, the remake, and then like 28 Days Later, those fast zombies too, the Rage virus zombies. Then you have these like zombie movies where they kind of start to pile on each other too, like World War Z. Yeah, yeah. So it's always like they have a variation per movie to make them specific, but in video games, it's like you have all different types.
Yeah, and that's also kind of feeds into the a video game is obviously there's an aspect of power fantasy that you're able to deal with these things, and that's not often seen in zombie movies. It really is about survival and escaping. And while there is obviously you do kill some zombies here and there, but there's never like anywhere where you're just like mowing shit down in a movie.
Yeah, yeah. Because anyone that ever like mows down zombies in a movie, they end up just getting like
dead.
Yeah. They just like So let me ask you this: don't give me the ending of The Last of Us. I don't want that at all. But like in other zombie video games, when you get to the end of the game, is it essentially that you've gotten to a safe place, or is it that there's a cure for the virus, or like what? What's the end game
for cures? There's almost never a cure for anything in any of these games. It's always that's it. That's the end of the world. You just got out of the worst of it.
Okay.
You get in a helicopter or something, or escaping whatever scenario you're in. That's generally what the games are. I mean, there usually are. Sometimes there are aspects of cures, or even just the source of it, like the source pathogen of it, and destroying it or taking it away to be studied or something like that. But there's almost never a cure for anything.
Yeah, because they want to make like sequels.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, okay. It's interesting, man. Like the subject matter we're talking about right here, you could like write a book on it, right? Or you could do like a YouTube video essay or something.
Yeah.
The difference in zombies. Yeah. So for those of you that are watching at home, if you guys want to comment, we could definitely use some comments. We haven't gotten some good ones from you guys in a while. Let us know what is your favorite zombie video game, or what is your favorite type of zombie from a video game. And are you guys still enjoying the show too? So Brian, we have The Last of Us this week, and then within 10 days, I think, is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Yeah, the 17th. So yeah, it's even closer than that.
Yes. So that's what we got coming up on the channel. If you guys haven't subscribed to Comic Books Transformed, please do. And I guess we will see you guys next week for more.